What is up, guys? It's Alex the Magician here, back for another video, and today we are continuing the Heroes 3 Spells Explained series. So in this one, we're going to be talking about Heroes 3 Best Spells, Tier 2. Do let me know, guys, if my explanations are sufficient. I rewatched my Tier 1 video that I made yesterday, and I felt like I could do a little bit of a better job explaining some things, some more specific details about the spells themselves. It was a bit late. I do apologize for that. It was late when I recorded the video, but, when I woke up, I already had it scheduled to publish on YouTube, so I wasn't about to re-record that video and delete the other one. But yeah, do please let me know if I'm going to try to do a little bit of a better job on the rest of them, and do let me know if you guys find the explanation sufficient enough. And also, if there are some details I may have missed, do let me know in the comments below as well. Let's just get into this. So, Tier 2, not going to be demonstrating too much. Really, there's only a couple of good spells in level 2. And the best one is Blind. So Blind can be really good. Basically, it just blinds the enemy, one stack, prevents them from taking their turn. Of course, it can be cured or dispelled by the opponent, but when utilized properly, this can really wreak havoc on your opponent's army, and sometimes it can even be used as a blind loop where your opponent will not get to move at all. Best utilized at expert level, because at expert level, whatever is blinded is not going to retaliate. At basic level or without fire magic, whatever is blinded is gonna retaliate at, I believe, 50% strength, and at advanced level it will retaliate at 25% strength. So I've demonstrated this in my kind of Heroes 3 cheats video, but just for the sake of this, I'll demonstrate it again. So this is one of the most notorious ways to actually utilize this, when you can just continuously blind loop and, basically take no damage and take out your opponent. So again, the way that this is done is you need to be able to outspeed your opponent. You need to have one stack that's going to move after your main stack that will be faster than whatever your opponent is. You can use, of course, haste or slow to make sure that it's faster, but then once you do that, once you blind them, and then you need to make sure that on the turn that you attack, you can blind again, right? So the way it works is so after you blinded them, you move them forward, and if it's this turn that you blinded on, you would just skip your turn so that you can have another cast and then you can attack. So you attack with the main stack, and then when this stack moves before the Cyclops, then we just reblind, right? And then just rinse and repeat until they're dead. And see, they're not retaliating because we have expert fire magic, so here we basically lose nothing. Really frustrating on the opponent's end to deal with this, but really satisfying if you can actually pull it off in a real game scenario. Now, besides the final battle, Blind can also be utilized in things like conses, for example, if they're big and you really want, to kind of not have to fight all of the stacks at once. It can also be utilized against something like an Archdevil's Break, for example. Like, let's say you're undead and you have vampires, right? And you're getting attacked by 3 stacks of Archdevils. Well, you can blind 2 of them. That way you only fight 1 at a time. Right? So you can utilize blind in those cases as well. So really useful, pretty much the best level 2 spell. Now, the other 2, I'm not really going to demonstrate. The other 2 that are still really good are Lightning Bolt and Ice Bolt. I mean, they're really straightforward. It's just, damage spells. You really don't even need to have air magic or water magic for these. It helps a little bit, but mostly they rely on your spell power. Lightning Bolt is better than Ice Bolt, but both of them are pretty decent, and they're better than Magic Arrow. So can be learned without Wisdom, of course. So all level 1 and 2 spells can be learned without Wisdom. You just need a spell book. So in a lot of cases, this is going to be kind of your go-to damage spell that doesn't cost you a lot of money and, a lot of mana. And when you don't have something like, let's say, Meteor Shower or Implosion or Chain Lightning, right? All right, another one that can be good is Firewall, but really that's usually only good if you're playing Luna. If you're not playing Luna, in a lot of cases, you're not really going to be utilizing Firewall. I've included the demonstrations of Luna before. There's tons of those videos, so if you guys are interested, you can check those out. Just search Luna Firewall or Luna Picket, Luna Cons. All of those guides are... I have videos on all of those, but yeah, if you're not Luna, then usually you're not going to use those. Okay, another interesting one that I am going to demonstrate is going to be a Remove Obstacle. So Remove Obstacle is kind of an interesting one. It works in weird ways. So there are some things that can be removed and some things that cannot be removed. I actually had to experiment and I actually had to look this up. I actually didn't know some of these things. So check this out. So I do have, whoops. I do have Expert Water Magic here, but there are some obstacles that cannot be removed. So if we take a look at the description, at basic level, it removes one non-magic obstacle. So it cannot remove things like Firewall or Landmine or Force Field or something like that. However, there's also integrated obstacles, such as cliffs. They are not affected. So an example of a cliff is this. So for example, if I click Remove Obstacle, I can remove this like lava puddle, but I cannot remove this these cliffs. And it also says here that castle walls and also rifts are examples of integrated obstacles. So just keep in mind that those things cannot be removed. I could not find an example of a rift, but I'm assuming that it's essentially one of these things that's kind of a long thing. Sometimes they're shaped like all the way around and whatnot. And the things that can be removed are like little rocks, like lakes and whatnot, like round ones like that. But the ones that are like connected like this, those cannot be removed. Kind of a weird mechanic. I did not actually know this about Force Field, but yeah, there you go. Hopefully you guys learned something there as well. And I'm also going to show you guys a couple more things about Remove Obstacles. So check this out. Oh, sorry. Let me load like this. So if I cast Force Field, for example, with Expert Water Magic, or even with Advanced Water Magic, you can remove firewalls. With Expert Water Magic, you can also remove things like Force Fields and also Quicksand and Landmine. So I'm just going to show you guys real quick. So see, this can be removed. But castle walls or moats also cannot be removed. So these also count as integrated obstacles, right? But this can. Now, here's another interesting thing. Something that doesn't really come in handy that often, or it doesn't really come into play that often. But if your opponent uses Quicksand or Landmine, now you cannot see it, right? You cannot actually see it. However, if you use Remove Obstacle, it shows it even without using remove obstacles. So basically, you will be able to see the landmines and the quicksand by just clicking the spell and not even using them. So, you know, if you can help it, you can actually avoid moving to those hexes by basically cheating like this using remove obstacles. So another kind of interesting use that you can actually utilize without ever using a remove obstacle. Because honestly, a remove obstacle doesn't come into play that often in a real game scenario. Usually there's going to be some other stuff that you're going to be casting. But hey, if you know, if your opponent happens to use quicksand or landmine, you know, you can try to use it like that. Alright, so the rest of the spells, we're just going to kind of talk about the rest of the level 2 spells, since they're not necessarily that amazing and, you know, not necessary to actually demonstrate them, I think. So, Disrupting Ray. Disrupting Ray is kind of a nasty one. It reduces the defense of, you know, whatever you're targeting. It can be used multiple times. It is also undispellable, and it lasts. It has an unlimited duration, and even when the creature dies and resurrects, it will still be there. So, kind of really, really nasty, but the thing is, you're usually not going to use the actual spell. What you will use sometimes is the ability of the sorceresses and the sea witches on, you know, the Cove Town. They can cast Disrupting Ray. Like first they'll cast Weakness as their first attack, and then if you target the same stack multiple times with Sea Witches or Sorceresses, doesn't matter, you can utilize one stacks, so that's a really annoying utilization of one stacks as Cove. You will cast Disrupting Ray and just continue to lower the defense of whatever you're fighting. Can be really, really good, and it also makes them really nasty to deal with when you're actually fighting them. So yeah, that's why you really got to be careful, especially if you cannot close the gap right away with the Sea Witches, you know, when you're fighting them as the kind of neutral creatures, you know, they can be really, really nasty. But as the actual spell, it's not used that often, I would say. There's usually much better things to use. Fortune increases your luck, of course, better at advanced and expert level. I believe expert level will increase it by 3. Once again, not something that you really want to use. It's you know, it's alright-ish. Like it's not like if you don't have any other options to cast, you know, it's better than casting like something like, I don't know, Protection from Fire. Although Protection from Fire might be better if you're expecting Armageddon, but really not something you want to waste your cast on. Does not really come into play that often. Precision is a decent one. It increases the ranged unit attack, but also not something that you generally want to waste your cast on. These two, honestly, they come into play more often when you use Genie 1 stacks as Tower to cast buffs on your own units. So you do like Precision on a Gremlin power stack, for example, or a Cyclop power stack. Fortune is not that bad of a cast, but you're usually not actually going to utilize the magic itself. Protection from air, not that useful, but it's, you know, better than protection from water, at least. It will protect you from lightning bolt, and it will protect you from chain lightning, right? Chain lightning is a pretty fearsome damage spell, so at expert level it's going to reduce the damage by 75%, and it's also going to cast it, you know, you're going to have mass protection from air on all of your units, so that's really good to protect you against chain lightning. On something like Jebus Outcast, it actually comes into play because you don't have Implosion, but you do have Chain Lightning, right? So protection from air can be pretty good on that one. Alright, weakness, also not something that you really want to waste your cast on. You know, again, serpent flies and dragonflies do cast weakness, or actually, hold on, I think serpent flies do not. Okay, I might be wrong on that. I forget whether the serpent flies cast weakness or not. I know they dispel, but I forget if they. I know dragonflies do cast it, and also, as I've mentioned before, sea witches as their first attack on something do cast weakness as well. Usually it's not something that you're actually going to be using as a separate cast, though. Again, much better things to do. At expert level, if you can cast Mass Weakness, of course it's a little bit better, but still, not necessarily the best one. But if you don't have any other options, you may want to utilize something like that. All right, and quicksand, we've already kind of demonstrated a little bit. It creates these little puddles of crap on the battlefield that basically, if your opponent steps on, they will lose the rest of their movements. So flying units, doesn't really affect them, but if it's like units that actually move, so like the Cyclops, for example. No, he walked around. Okay, hold on. Let me try to do that again. Okay. So see, if he steps on it without knowing, then he loses the remainder of his movements for that particular movement that he did. Not really that useful. You don't really see it come into play that often. Can be countered by remove obstacle. Again, as I've mentioned, by just even using remove obstacle like this, not even just clicking it, not even casting it, you can already see these. So, yeah, really, pretty much a wasted cast. Honestly, it doesn't really help you that much. And also against the AI, you can't really use this in a lot of cases because somehow the AI cheats and they have like hex by hex movement and they can actually go around it and move in a weird way. So yeah, really in a lot of cases this, against the human opponent, pretty much useless. Against the AI, pretty much useless because they can actually cheat. So that's about it for these spells, and there are two more that I want to discuss that are level 2, that is Disguise and Visions. Disguise, once again, it's mostly useless. At expert level, it will make all of your army look like your top tier creature in your town. So like if I'm Conflux and I cast expert level Disguise, it will show all of my army as 1 stacks of Phoenixes. But the thing is that it only works until the end of the turn, and so that means that for blue, it's useless. Blue, if you cast it and you end your turn, immediately it's gone. So it's only useful for red, really, and you really don't see that very often. Of course, unless you're Steve Allen and you tell me on my stream that somebody might be using Disguise. There's actually a funny story where I did not know how Disguise worked, and it was a game that I had on stream, and I was about to attack my opponent, and I had Titans, and I was going to make Titan 1 stacks, and all he had was Cyclop 1 stacks, and right before I attack him, I was going to make Titan 1 stacks and just shoot him down before he can even attack me, and, he would just die because I would have first move. But Steve Allen over there says, hold on a minute. Could that be this? And I'm like, what's going on? Am I missing something? Did I forget my artifacts? Did something happen? And he's like, could that be Disguise? And I'm like, oh, shit. Maybe, I don't know. It could be, because all of the stacks are the same unit. So I'm like, maybe that is Disguise. So I end up because of that. I did not know. Of course, it's my fault not knowing how Disguise worked. But my opponent was not Stronghold, right? So Disguise would either make your units look like your best unit if you don't have expert level, and his best unit was not Cyclops, so that it already could not have been Disguise. Or at expert level, it would make them look like the top tier unit of your town, and the opponent wasn't Stronghold, so it could not have been Disguise. Afterwards, I read how it worked, and I realized that it couldn't have been. But what happened in that game was I actually I actually believe Steve Allen, and I decide to actually bring all of my army, just in case it was Disguise, and because of that, all of my Titans were in one stack, and the rest of my units were not fast enough to outspeed his Cyclops, and it ends up allowing him to implo like 3 of my Titans and surrender. So yeah, that was a little bit of a disappointing story there, and ever since then I do not listen to Steve Allen's backseat gaming. But either way, I did end up winning that game, so no harm, no foul, unlike Beastmaster's backseats that have actually killed me before. But yeah, either way, disguise, almost never works. It's almost never useful. So, all right, hope you guys enjoyed that little story. Visions can help in certain cases. So the best use of visions is when you have diplomacy and you want to see whether or not whatever you're going to be fighting or whatever you want to try to fight, whether it's going to run away, whether it's actually going to try to join you or not. So in that case, visions can be helpful so that you can actually, already see whether or not they will join you before actually attacking them. So it does help. Spell power increases the radius. I believe that at basic, well, let's actually have a look. Number of monsters and whether or not they will join. Okay, so yeah, so basically it just increases the range. So the advanced and expert. So you can even use basic visions and it's still going to be fine. It's still going to tell you whether or not the creature will join you. It will just at advanced and expert level, it just increases the effect radius. So basically, you'll be able to tell creatures that are farther away. Like, I cast it here, for example. I can see these, but the ones that are far away like this, I can't see, right? And the higher your spell power, the farther away you will actually be able to see it. So. And another little known fact about visions is that if you have rogues in your army, if you happen to find rogues in a refugee camp or something like that, rogues actually give your hero visions. So you will also, well, another thing is that you also see the numbers of the creatures in your enemy's army. And yeah, if you have rogues in your army, you don't need to cast visions. You will immediately see this information when you right-click either the enemy hero or the attacking creatures. Alright guys, so that about does it for the tier 2 spells. So I hope that you guys found this video useful. I hope that you learned something you didn't already know. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, check out my stream, link in the description below, and stay tuned for more videos. I will see you guys soon. Peace.